Okay, hi, we are live. And today we are live, absolutely. And we are looking at a couple of very interesting topics. And there's a couple things that I wanted to start off with that are kind of important things to kind of consider. Now, I have spent a lot of time around people studying acting and uh, doing music, writing, producing. I have spent quite a lot of time around a lot of different people in a lot of different genres of art. And the thing about it is that it's absolutely important to realize that there are these different words that people have for different styles of artwork, right? But there's like workshops that you can go into and you can kind of workshop your artistic desires, or you can workshop how to be able to kind of do the art form in a certain style or with certain types of feelings. Not usually, they don't usually have things like that, except for mostly having to do with stylistic acting. Sometimes you got workshops to be able to do certain genres within acting or within certain types of plays. You know, an example of that is these Shakespeare groups. A lot of them, they'll do these groups, and then that is a spot where they'll actually do activating certain feelings, certain emotions in different areas, having to do with famous speeches, etc. Right? Some of this stuff has to do with massive music stars and how they go through writing processes to be able to create art, right? And there's this stuff that's called the rehearsal studios. So there's these, literally what will happen is that there'll be these places that which will be rehearsal studios, and the artists will be off touring for a while, and then they'll come back and they'll want to start to work on a label, or they'll try and work on some kind of creative element, and they'll come back and they'll book 6 weeks or a few months on in a rehearsal studio. And in a rehearsal studio, you have this advantage because there's no pressure to actually have some sort of product immediately. You might go and go have a coffee and come back to the studio, and you might then meander into some feelings that you have about certain things, and you might work on some guitar riffs, and so one thing sounds good, another thing sounds good. There's this whole atmosphere within rehearsal studios that actors need to learn from, because there's this relaxed sense about this. Now, I have seen, I don't even know the number, I mean hundreds and hundreds. This is outside of the acting world, of all my acting studies. I have seen hundreds of big stars in the music industry, one way or another, work through different things. When I say work through different things, I have been around and gotten updates from people that are around the different areas having to do with rehearsal studios. And, it's interesting because there are definitely processes that actors can learn from. Now, the biggest thing that I'm actually getting at here, the reason why I'm actually going through this, is it comes down to the point of relaxation. See, there's a lot of hype when you go on these music recording studios, and you go to these things to be able to go out and do all of these concerts and stages and all this other stuff, right? There's a lot of hype. There's a lot of all kinds of activities with it. But when it comes down to the nuts and the actual bolts of actually creating, I won't name names, but I've seen many different types of people in the music industry curled up in a corner with a pen and a paper, writing some notes on some stuff, or doing things, trying to do some stuff from the side to come up with some lyrics, coming up with some ideas about different stuff. Sometimes I talk to them, sometimes I don't. It just depends. And this is the thing. It comes from this place of relaxation. That's the point. The point is, it comes out of relaxation. It doesn't come from this amped up like element of hype. So today Today, we are actually going to go through a very, very impromptu element of discovery of spoon rivers. We're going to look at spoon rivers in a way that's a little bit, shooting a little bit like a recording, like a rehearsal studio. Now, just so you know, some of these rehearsal studios for the music industry and such, they'll later bring in, once they've worked out, 5 or 6 or 10 songs or whatever they're going to try and record. And they'll bring in the recording studio to those rehearsal spaces. But a rehearsal space is different. And this is what I'm working to be able to create with you. And this is why I have an open invitation to join me to be able to troubleshoot your acting. Now, this isn't something where I'm in any way wanting to have any kind of judgment on your acting. I'm not here to be a judge of your acting to say if it's good or bad, but I will definitely help you out to say, this is actually activating in you, and this I don't see activating in you as much. Or how about, what's another way for you to be able to work with this? Now, I've worked with big names on this. This isn't something that I'm doing out of shooting from my hip, and I don't have any experience with this. I've seen over 30,000 acting exercises with many, 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 many hundreds of big names. I have watched over 70 different teachers teaching and learning and studying acting before they were even teachers, some of them. So this is coming from a spot where it's literally the ability to be able to troubleshoot and work to discover acting. It's not a place of coming and saying, well, this is what's wrong. It has to be corrected necessarily. A lot of times, this is something about being able to open up that creative vehicle that you have inside of yourself. These bands, they come and they want to rehearse. They want to go to a rehearsal studio because they want to expand the feeling of finding their music within themselves. This is key. I'm not making this up. This is absolutely the way it is. They work to be able to, absolutely desire to be able to expand the music that's able to come from them. Their creative endeavor, their ability to be able to incite emotion and feeling and all kinds of other things into their music. And that's key. That is key. And that is definitely, definitely worth a side chat about how to be able to approach these live feeds and how to be able to approach acting. So right now, I am absolutely active in receiving comments. There's still some comments I have still to get back. There's a couple things that I'm thinking about when people give me questions. And it's very fascinating because, I absolutely love acting. And I absolutely love all the differences that people are capable of being able to present in questions, because it's surprising, it's surprising. So there's definitely a couple comments and questions that I think I have a couple with me to go over, but I still have more to answer in the this whole digital world, whatever you want to call it, videography world. So we are looking at, there was another topic I have to address. Yeah, that's another thing. So look, I address knowing and having different things with the knowing. And did I say knowing? I study the processes of people that have actually gone and done and produced and worked on and in some cases created more than one identity in the film industry, and some people don't even know it. That's actually true. And sometimes there's elements of people that I work with the whole concept of famous people, and why I don't care for the whole thing. I don't really care for the entire industry. I think there's so much trivial things about it. But what I care about and what I'm interested in, and the reason why I'm open to the industry as a whole, is because I'm interested in being able to delve into parts of myself and see people dive into parts of themselves that are capable of expanding what it is that they put into art, what it is and how it is that they're able to be artists that then work through the techniques of learning acting techniques to be able to then turn themselves from artists to able to become actors. And I've seen many different people, including people in the music industry, go through acting techniques and some of them have worked very hard because some of them have, absolutely. And some are obviously, there's all types of different people. And so what I'm looking at is, in terms of addressing famous people and relationships, it's very, very key. It's never, ever, ever anything I've ever wanted to be involved in being involved with a famous person to be involved with a famous person. And I've always been very clear about that. Sometimes, some people will want to give me their resumes for certain things. And a lot of times I'll say, well, listen, maybe I'm not so interested in it, but I'll be happy to look at some of the pieces of work that you think are really good. And I've said that to people that And the thing is that, and they've said, oh, wow, that's sure. Yeah, I'll show you this or that. And I've done this on that. And I thought that was fine. But it was, it's very interesting. It's not anything about infatuation. And this is another reason to talk about this is not for my benefit. It's everything I'm trying to work with here with these live feeds and getting this stuff out there is working so that you have perspective that maybe you could either agree with, that could support your point of view, or it could be something that could maybe enhance another angle that you could actually look at. A lot of people work within acting, and as soon as they get on set with, whomever, all of a sudden their nerves come over them, they're shaking, they don't know what to do with it. And that's why I'm constant. When I'm teaching acting, when I'm working with this whole thing, when I'm here working right now with you, I'm absolutely clear about it. Look, you want to work on abilities to find techniques. You won't have to worry about the nerves. You won't have to worry about the ability of worrying about whether or not you're working with somebody that's famous or about to become famous or has done 5 other pictures and they're about to have them all released. And that that's going to mean that there's going to be attention on the project you're working on. You really want to listen to yourself, and you want to be able to really enhance your abilities to be able to really work on getting your insides active and awake and working. And I'll tell you, there is every single way, the most famous people, whether they're high on themselves or not high on themselves, or if they're very good down to earth. And some people, you'd be surprised. Some of the biggest stars are the most down to earth people. Some of the biggest stars are literally, you meet them, talk to them, and you never, ever in a million years think, wow, they don't talk like they're famous. It's just something that it's their profession. Their profession happens to come with fame. Their profession happens to come with the extra added attention. And the only reason why some of these people, which in my case is absolutely true for me, is that I only am interested in the processes of the actual art. And if fame comes with it, then fame comes with it, and it would be fine. And at that point, you just line up everything in terms of scheduling, and you just deal with everything scheduling as equal as possible, and try and make decisions as fair as possible for everybody that you can. And that's exactly part of what I've actually learned from famous people. The ideal relationship with this whole topic of famous people is to have 2 creatives that fall in love and they want to idealize each other. That is, that they want to actually be in support of each other, having internal expression that comes out. And if you can ever fall into a situation where you're able to fall into that kind of situation, I would highly recommend that you consider that. And that's just my very small, humble advice on that whole topic. And it comes from some of the stuff that I have experience in. Now, the other thing, very quickly, is I have a note here on infatuations. Infatuations are something that usually lasts less than a year. It's something that's you want to really take a look at, that what that actually means, because if being infatuated isn't long lasting. So what are we doing today? we are in a situation where I'm definitely gonna embarrass myself in some way today. And there is, in a good way, we are going to absolutely be in a situation where we're going to discuss spoon rivers. Now, what an enormous, enormous topic, spoon rivers, right? It is an incredible topic because spoon rivers are these things that basically are speeches. These are things that are speeches. I say speeches and not monologues because sometimes people will say that they have a monologue and they'll forget to add themselves into their speech. So a lot of some different people in the industry prefer to call the Spoon River work monologues. And monologues are these things that actually, and these speeches are actually these things. I had a distraction on something with this screen. So speeches are actually things that hopefully have a purpose behind them, right? So you want to be able to find the purpose that's behind the actual words. So you want to then find the thing that's behind it, right? So what are spoon rivers used for? Now, this is key. Spoon rivers are used to mine the emotions. They typically get taught in the second year of Meisner training, which has to do with the whole concept of being truthful under imaginary circumstances, moment-to-moment work, all this stuff having to do with these things called ins and outs, which was renamed by many different studios as doors and activities. Later in Sanford Meisner's life, when he taught for quite a few years elsewhere in different places, there were several different places that he taught in California. It wasn't just two. And the thing is that they started to migrate away from the traditional ins and outs, and then they started to kind of rename it the doors activities. And the thing is that they're pretty much the exact same exercise. They were just whether or not they had updates to them. So look, the whole concept after working with acting, probably about 3, 4, maybe even as much as 6 months into your acting training, you're going to be in a situation where you're starting to learn a process that originally was some people on Broadway used to call it inner life. And that was renamed something called emotional preparation. Now, this is important enough to know the background of. So you work with emotional preparation to incite. How most people will teach it is that they will teach it so that it incites an emotional catalyst in the very first moment of acting. And I have videos on this, and I have my own opinion that is very strong, but also open. I never have closed opinions about anything, usually, because I find value in other people. I think that's imperative for me to be open about being able to adjust. And the thing is I have a strong feeling that emotional preparation is more than just for the first moment. I think that it's a warm up for the actor to be able to stretch and warm themselves up before they actually do the actual material. Now, the reason why I mentioned this, talking on the topic of spoon rivers, is that we are in a situation where a spoon river is not just some simple conversational speech. It's not just something that has 1 or 2 points to it. Normally, a Spoon River is something that has 5, 4, maybe 3. A lot of times it could even have up to 20 deep, deep, deep emotional preparations in one single speech. See, we're working with this construct and this architecture in acting with the Spoon Rivers that have to do with multiple layers of emotional preparation. We're literally summing up the entire life of one individual in 20 lines or 10 to 30 lines usually, depending upon the Spoon River Anthology. So this is not something that is literally in a situation that is like, this is not some conversational reality piece that goes into just getting a spark of emotion. And that would work when you walk into the studios and you work for your soap opera, or you're able to get a spark of something for your element one way or another. No. This is something that's deeper. This is why the Spoon River's works get used, as well as several other materials, including like several, well, I won't go into that. Let's stay on Spoon Rivers. But there are several other speeches, books, that some of the acting schools will use to be able to study so that they have the ability to work to be able to put that multiple layers of emotion that you're working to be able to activate multiple things. So next thing here is how to find your emotional note. Now, this is absolutely key because the work of yourself to be able to find yourself and put something that's internal. You're not just finding this thing with some imaginational head game. You're looking to actually find and mine something, sometimes using your imagination, but you're literally working to be able to have the activation. You want to activate the quality. You activate the quality. It's like breaking one of those flares that all of a sudden give out the smoke signal, right? And when you break open those things, all of a sudden the flares spur up. This is what the image that I would suggest using for yourself when you're thinking about how and what is that activation mean. Look, you've got something inside of yourself that doesn't activate until you work with it, you activate it, you kind of break it open like one of those safety flares, right? And then once you break that open, it's alive. There's smoke starts coming out. There's emotions start coming out. This element starts flooding. There's this emotion. There's a spark. And then sometimes a lot of actors will feel this flight or flight mechanism inside of themselves. They feel this flight or flight. Sometimes that's fight or flight, and sometimes that's just they're not sure what the next step is. And this is why I'm teaching technique. Because the technique is to be able to apply what it is that you've sparked. You've got this thing, oh my God, it's sparked. There's something that's living. Now you've got some kind of emotion. Now, where do you put your attention? And I always teach, you put your attention on receiving the other person, right? But in Spoon Rivers, it's a little bit different. In Spoon River speeches, you want to put whatever you've sparked into whatever is an applicable language, right? So you're putting it into the piece of text that actually is applicable to what it is that you sparked. And we're going to practice that today. We're going to do some examples of that today. And this is how you're able to find an emotional note. You're working to be able to constantly study yourself. You're working to be able to be you want to be able to find things that you can actually activate in yourself. Some stuff you're going to write down and it's going to be for the future, 2, 3, 4 months away, maybe 10 months away. And you're going to write stuff down that's activating you, and it's going to take time to build up the craft. That is building up the technique. It's not some witchcraft that you're doing. This isn't some kind of thing that you're doing to be able to try and magic something out of yourself. No, I'm teaching you the magic. The magic of acting is in technique. The magic of acting is in emotional preparation. And the magic of emotional preparation and the magic of acting is also in emotional activation. You're having to work on a way that you're studying to be able to list out stuff that you think might be good ballpark guesses as to things that you might be able to put into your Spoon Rivers. So by the time you're done a year and a half of training for acting exercises, you probably have done 100 100 exercises, or maybe only 75 or something. It depends on your class structure, and you might have rehearsed another 75 or something. So you're probably around 150, maybe at max 200 exercises, and that's decent enough that you're able to then start the processes of being able to hopefully find the differences between instinct, feeling, and emotion. Now, it has to be said that when you're working with the feeling, initially, a lot of times, especially in the first 25 or 30 exercises that you do, a lot of times, especially even right when you're learning emotional preparation, unless you're learning emotional preparation with activation, a lot of those students will literally be chasing down feelings that are just coming and going. They'll have a feeling in themselves during their time of emotional preparation. And by the time they knock on the door, their feeling's not there anymore. And then they're just relying on the give and take to hopefully be something that's worth it to be able to make the exercise work. And that's usually about 25 or 30 different classes that you would attend in the majority of people that I've seen. And I've seen thousands of students doing this process. So sometimes I would have students say, well, hey, listen, you didn't come to my class. And I'd be like, well, look, I'm sorry. I was busy surviving, doing whatever I needed to do, or I was, unable to get there because I can't go to every single class at that moment. But there have been times where I have been in every single class, without doubt. And I've actually, there's been times where I've literally spent 13, 14 hours at the studios daily. And, that's just the way it's been. And obviously this is just whatever it is. But the reality to this whole thing is I'm telling you the keys and the steps that you can take. And you might find that you need step 1, step 3, step 4, and step 6. And those 4 steps out of the 6 steps are the ways that you can actually work with. And that's why I have a video that's called the 4 steps of emotional preparation. Because I sat down and I was like, you know what? Some of the students don't need to know all 9 or 10 steps to emotional preparation. Maybe they can just jump into it. Some people can just jump into different experiences. Some people will be able to even emotionally prepare, although I don't fully recommend it until you really, really, really know what you're doing. But you might have a really big exercise in your acting work that actually activates you and brings you to just tears. And you might later be able to actually remember the experiences of that exercise and use that for your emotional preparation. And what you'll feel is an openness up of that experience. You'll feel the desire to have those tears, and the tears might come, they may not come. But the key thing is that you'll be open. You'll be an open wound. You'll have this concept in you that you know that you've been opened. Now, this is key, absolutely key for Spoon Rivers. You're talking from the grave in Spoon Rivers. You're talking from the grave. You're talking from your highest level of consciousness. You're at the height of how to be able to communicate your entire life experience. Your entire life experience. Now, this might mean that you go through massive amounts of work on each one of the Spoon Rivers. You might research what it's like to be drunk. Some of the famous people, they've pointed out that what they would do during preparations is that they would actually YouTube drunk videos. They would actually YouTube drunk videos. And they would find internet videos that would be able to help them to be able to start to identify some of the feelings of what it was like to be able to have people completely out of control due to alcohol. Well, that would be great for some of these speeches. And see, some of these speeches, you might be working on an impediment or some kind of handicap or just straight drunken behavior. And that might be something that might take 3-4 weeks of research. And then you would work to be able to isolate those components of you. And then you could add that to the Spoon River work, right? Those behaviors of drunk, that behavior of stumbling, there's the speech of Spoon Rivers where the person stumbles home to end up being killed. And they're killed as they're drunk. Now, you could also, as fun, to be able to have fun with acting. And I will start getting involved in this. The biggest concern for me right now is getting enough of the information that I know and have and start getting it out in teaching form. And then I will start to keep expanding different things. And if people want to do different things, or you want to jump on and work different scenes or whatever, I'm open to all of it. It's fine. Honestly, that would be fine. I wouldn't mind it. It would be fine. You know, I'm a bit shy with all of this stuff, to be quite frank. But, you know, it would be fun. It would be fine. But you could literally, absolutely, you know, I'm more comfortable doing full makeup. Nobody recognizes me, going out and doing a part. And that would be the way that I would like to do it instead. But it would be fine. However it is, I'd be willing to be able to do that. And we can work on stuff that has copyright-free material. Or we can get the absolute permission from the writers, or come up with stuff yourself to be able to come up with stuff. And if you've got materials that you can work with, no problem. Then you got materials that are copyright free, and we can be very clear. Look, you know, you might even want to make it GNU license, and you want to be able to say that anybody wants to can work with the material, and that would be fine. And you could then work with that and then find this, and we can do all kinds of things. And this is great. And this is part of the whole creative process, right? But my concern is this. I want to work in a way that's the highest level of the ability to do acting, and that is working with your emotions and the feelings. So you're working so that you can definitely work with this drunken state. You can work with in these elements where you're working with drunk concepts of drunk, and then you can do speeches that you never would have done, that they don't even have, that are drunk. So you're opening yourself up to be able to do that. Now, I'm going to say this because it's true. I remember a speech that someone did. I got special permission to go into a couple of different things. And study some students and some work and such. And I remember the person came out, they did their speech, they did their speech, right? And then they went to the back, they finished their speech, and then I remember them coming back out. And I remember seeing something happening in them after their speech had happened. There was something activated in them. And I don't know what happened, but I just know I pointed at them or did some kind of like, oh, there's some, I noticed something about something being activated in the person. And then that person, I guess, realized it at the same moment or whatever it was. And then they started to do the speech over again. And it was, the second time was fantastic. And the reason why was because they were relaxed. They thought that they had finished their speech. They'd gone into that relaxed state. And then when they activated their emotion again, all of a sudden it was more real. And this speech was fantastic. That was great. And anyway, that reminds me of some of the work. And so basically, there's a lot to discuss, and I'd be more than happy to take comments after this goes through. I know some people are shy, and that's also part of it. And I wouldn't even care how it is you want to communicate in terms of what process, whatever is most comfortable for you. I don't care. That's fine. So here's the thing: is you want to be having an emotional experience. So we went through today. I've done some things to work on some stuff. And I promise you we're going to get to the work, but there's no rush, to be honest. The reality of this stuff is you want to have an emotional experience. So by the time you've worked through 75 exercises or 75 acting classes, then you're in a place where you should be able to, in some way, open yourself up or do something to adjust yourself so you're a little bit more in a ballpark of an emotion or some kind of element like that, right? And you're in that sense where you're able to activate some sort of emotion. Now, at first, even after 75 classes or 75 major exercises in class, you may still be struggling to be able to really isolate those components. And this is the reason why I mentioned the worksheets, the writing work that I suggest, going through, really isolating this stuff. And the reason why I'm doing many of these videos is because I want to be absolutely clear. I want to give you the complete reassurance. When you work with emotion, you are giving yourself an uncertain outcome intentionally. You don't know what the actual results are going to fully be. You're not working in a way where you've memorized, you might have memorized the lines of the speech, but you don't know fully what the whole presentation is going to be. There's going to be this whole element of this whole thing. There was this actor that the sound crew person tripped right at the very end of a scene. And they looked up and they said, oh, and they said an impromptu line about somebody, tripping over the garbage that they'd just done a scene with. And it was great. And the person thought they were going to get fired on set. And then what ended up happening is that they ended up getting a bonus because they added to the scene, which was a complete fluke. But the reason why they got a bonus was because the actor had worked with relaxation. The actor had worked to know that they were in a situation where they had taken a journey. So let's take a short break here. Let me catch my breath, and then we'll dive in and we'll take some dives into this stuff. Every single time, we're working with this component of this acting. We want to practice the ability of putting our own talent in our work at every chance you can get. And you work and you just, it's like going swimming. You dive in the pool, you're in the water, you're in the imaginary circumstance of the water, right? You've got the whole thing going, and then you come out of it, and then you go through the process of coming out. Then you dive in it, you do your emotional preparation, you get yourself worked up, then you dive into your acting experiences again, you have another experience, you add more to your talent, you're able to work better, you're able to improve yourself, and you come out of the water and that's fine. This is the fun of it. We're able to take these journeys so that we don't fully know what we're going to expect. Okay, so let's look at this whole thing. I will be right back, and then we will absolutely be working together. I really am into acting, and I know you are too. And the most important thing in acting is emotion. You've got to be willing and capable, and you got to know some of these tricks. These tricks of being able to activate your emotion. You activate your emotion in the being side of the work, and then you catapult yourself and dive into the doing side of the work, the interaction. And this element called emotional preparation is key. Hi, my acting training is incredibly extensive. These are some of my notes. This is not all of them. By far, it's not all. And I really like acting. I really like the hardest component of acting is the emotion. And so that's why I run and operate emotional preparation. And there's information on that website that you can join me on my live feed, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Tuesdays and Fridays. I hope to see you there. If you find the information on my website, you can actually join the live feed. I can send you a link and you can actually come on and talk to me face to face. And you can actually, we'll do emotional preparations together. So we can actually work to be able to access your emotions and help you be able to put emotions into your acting work. Okay, so we are back and we are going to go through some stuff here. And this is pretty exciting because we are absolutely in a situation where we are learning. Now listen, I'm telling you, you may not know my name, you may not know whatever I've been involved in within the whole industry, but it doesn't make a difference. I'm telling you, I know for a fact that what we're doing has a value. What we are going to do is we are mining our talent. We are absolutely getting small pieces that we're going to start to work with and see what we can come up with. Are we going to be able to get something in our work? Can we find something in our work? Can we activate something with our talent? And then can we dive into the experience? This is key. Now, oh, that's note. Okay. So we are working to be able to achieve how to get and mine our talent. And our talents are not something that's external to us. Our talents are something that it's internal to us. And that's kind of why, in this bizarre way, acting has this incredible spirituality to it. Because the spirituality of acting is our ability to admit who we are to ourselves. How can we activate one thing or another thing, work with what, and how to be able to do the whole thing. It's no limits to this stuff. So this is a little bit nerve-wracking, but we are absolutely involved in this. Now, first of all, I do need to admit nicely is that if you are dyslexic, like I am, I have dyslexia, free dyslexia fonts. There's a couple different kinds of them, and that are free, and there's a couple paid versions, but I have free versions. I have an all capital font that literally has the capitals that are large, and then the small letters are still capitals, but they're capitals, but they're small capitals. So I have higher case capitals and lowercase capitals in the same font. What happens with dyslexia, especially with a lot of things with the artistic types, is the B's will turn upside down to become P's or Q's. And this is just part of the reading. And in many different ways, when dyslexia has been first discovered, many different times people said that it was an intelligence disorder, meaning that they were actually more intelligent, the people that had dyslexia. They looked at everything at such depth that they could actually, that was the reason why. It was actually, they were really, actually, it's not a bad thing. So it's actually part of your creativity. And but being able to go through this, now I'm going to read just with normal text today, and I got the couple challenges of the lights and the text, but that's fine. We're going to do this, and you're going to be hopefully forgiving of this. So we're going to look through some Spoon River Anthology. Now, my absolute advice to you, which is solid, is to write down 5 to 9 different emotions. Work with the emotions or deep feelings. Or if you only have an instinct, you could work, but you want to try and work with as much depth as possible. You write down those feelings separately. What type of things? As we go through this, you could write down the feelings that kind of resonate with you, that kind of work, or even before, you might already have journal work that has feelings that you have a tendency towards, right? Some people have a tendency toward one feeling, some people have a tendency towards another. So then you're working to be able to put the process of yourself in acting. Now here's one. I'm just going to go through. I have kind of intentionally not memorized any of these and kind of just printed out some to work this way so that you can see the rehearsal process, initial rehearsal processes of Spoon River. So we're going to read through a couple of these. Francis Turner. I could not run or play in boyhood. In manhood, I could only sip the cup. Okay. Not drink the cup, but sip the cup. For scarlet fever had left my heart diseased. Yet I lie here, dead, right? I lie here in my grave, soothed by a secret that only Mary knows. So look, ask yourself. Now, I'm looking at Francis Turner, right? I'm looking at Francis Turner. Now, look, I have seen every Spoon River there is, I think. I mean, mostly. I mean, I've seen a lot of Spoon River work by hundreds of different times by different people in different. I mean, it's really it's definitely something. And I've got notes on. It's true. So this is one that as soon as I read, I go, yeah, okay. I know this. This is something that I can identify with, right? See, as much as can you ask yourself, do you understand with this Spoon River, you're looking at somebody who could not run and play, right? They're not able, they're in manhood, right? There's a hint. There's a manhood. In manhood, they could only sip the cup. They couldn't drink. They couldn't have, hot relationships, adult relationships, right? They couldn't do that because they had scarlet fever. Right now, look, when I say they, I'm doing you a disservice because we're looking at this to say you or me. Now, yet I lie here soothed. I'm soothed by a secret. I am soothed. Something is like really good about this really bad circumstance. And there is a secret, but none but Mary know. Now, this is well written. And I'll tell you something. You could do this part of the speech with one emotion, and it would work. It would work good. You could work with it with one. Or you could add several different emotional preparations to this 5 lines of text. And you could literally be, understanding, your own limitation. What's something that's limited you in life? What is a limit in life to you where you were not capable of, say, fully having the full experiences in life that you know that you either deserved or that you could have had, or that you know that other people have had. Now, for me, I could do this on this stuff's hard to admit. I don't mind though. Let's work with it. Look, I could do this with times where I didn't have very much. That could be something. I could do this on times where, I remember sometimes I would meet the most beautiful people, right? And I'm telling you, they would like me. And I didn't have enough money to take them out for a coffee. That I could spend. I literally, I'd be meeting the most like incredible people. And I was in this great circumstance. Now, this isn't all of my life, but I'm saying that there's some times that I could remember. So I could use this as a reaction, a spur. Do I remember meeting somebody who was a Bollywood star that was just drop dead gorgeous, and I couldn't even invite them out for a coffee, right? And they liked me, and I couldn't. What was I going to do? Hey, listen, I'm in an impoverished situation, but I'm an artist. I'm okay, but at the same time, it was difficult. But now look, you can see I'm catching the emotion of it. I'm getting the emotion of it. This is part of rehearsal. We're talking through a rehearsal process. We're not looking at a performance yet. We're not looking at, a fully done piece of work. We're talking about rehearsal. So in boyhood, I could not run or play in boyhood. In manhood, I could only sip the cup. I could not drink. For scarlet fever left me with my heart disease. Yet I lie here with a secret, soothed by a secret that only Mary knows. Now, I'm gushing right now. I'm gushing based off of something that I know. I'm not talking about nothing, but I'm saying that it comes out in the script. See, we're working with this stuff to be able to activate something. To activate something, yeah, there's something activated. I'm not saying this is polished, but there's an activation. Now there's this garden of acacia. There is this palace of a house. Now I was surprised when I walked in. Tilapia trees, arbor sweet with vines. There on that afternoon in June, by Mary's side, kissing her with my soul upon my lips, it suddenly took flight. Now look, I'm showing you raw emotional stimulus to be able to look at this Spoon River and give you ideas about how you can find it yourself. I might have been impoverished. I might have been going through a hard time financially with some of the stuff having to do with my absolute driving force of studying acting, of working with acting. But there's a secret that only Mary knows. And that's all I'm saying. But because of this being a piece of work, we have to do as much justice as we can, of course, but we're working to be able to achieve this. We are working to be able to find stuff for ourselves that we can put in it. Now, I have to tell you, to do at least enough service to this speech, the line of text that says it suddenly took flight, it means that was the moment I died. But I died happy. I'm not telling you how I left that mansion, but I know for sure. Do you get my point? Now, look. Man, acting can be revealing, right? It can actually be quite revealing. So the thing is, you work on this piece. You've now found something that actually activates your emotion, right? You found a piece of a secret that nobody knows but you. You can talk it out like this. And you can remember honest times. But when it comes to that last line, you know, kissing her with my soul upon my lips. I mean, for me, Mary is an artist. For me, Mary's an artist. They shared something incredible with Mary. In the line that's saying it suddenly took flight. Yeah, my heart suddenly stopped. But I experienced something before it stopped, I'll tell you. Do you get my point? You get my drift? Do we got the emotion here? Do we got something to work with? Now, we can go and work with it. We know what to activate inside of ourselves as an actor. Now we know something that's actually real. We know that we can actually, wow, there's something alive. There's something activated. We know how to activate it now. Now we know how to activate it later. This is what I suggest to do for classes. You work with your emotional preparation. You get your emotional preparation done. That's it, done. And you go and you work with your emotional preparation. You know, I could not run or play, right? I couldn't pay for lunch. I couldn't pay for dinner. In boyhood and in manhood, I could only sip the cup. not drink. Because scarlet fever left my heart diseased. I was a starving artist. There was a lot of stuff working, but there was a lot of stuff that wasn't. Yet, I lie here, soothed by a secret that none but Mary knows. There is this garden in Acacia, catalpa trees, an arbor sweet with vines. And there on that afternoon in June, by Mary's side, kissing her with my soul upon my lips, it suddenly took flight. Now, you can do this however you want. You could do this way, and then I would suggest taking a break, or if you're working very hard so that you're activating emotions in one way, another way, you're working, so you've got this whole thing. Look, I feel it. If something's working, I don't know what. I don't know fully if it's exactly presented the way anybody wants to present it. I don't know all that, but I know this. I know there's emotion in it. And I'd rather watch raw acting with emotion than on something bunch of fakery. So it works. There's something here that works. Remember when we started this live feed, I had a very serious discussion with you about rehearsal processes, how film studios, how music bands, how musicians work in these things called rehearsal studios. They're there to write the music. They're there to get the ideas. They're there to work, to be able to work from themselves so that part of themselves are actually in their music. This is key. Nothing could be more important than this. And this is what we have achieved here with this. Now, the hour is up. And I feel like we could go for 5 hours on this, and I probably would. But I think it would be better to serve every single thing that I have going on right now and every single thing that you have going on right now to pace ourselves working through this work. And I'm a little embarrassed. Because, literally, I didn't plan this. I didn't plan that. I just picked up one. I said, let's work with it. And it just happened to be Francis Turner. So, thank you for joining me on the live feed. Feel free, share this with your friends. Be well and absolutely work in a way that puts yourself in your work, right? Now, we know that we are just touching and scratching the rehearsal surface of Spoon River Anthologies. And there's all sorts of work that will be in the future to be able to be included with some of this stuff. So thank you again. Let's watch one more thing here, make sure it's all set up, and then we will close out. All right, so thanks very much. Thank you. I really am into acting, and I know you are too. And the most important thing in acting is emotion. You've got to be willing and capable, and you got to know some of these tricks. These tricks of being able to activate your emotion. You activate your emotion in the being side of the work, and then you catapult yourself and dive into the doing side of the work, the interaction. And this element called emotional preparation is key. Hi, my acting training is incredibly extensive. These are some of my notes. This is not all of them. It's by far, it's not all. And I really like acting. I really like the hardest component of acting is the emotion. And so that's why I run it up